Do you know? Top 10 OSHA violations reported in 2019. Here are these violations. Violation at rank 10. Eye and face protection violation. Total 1,411 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations of eye and face protection are failure to provide protection where employees are exposed to hazards from flying objects, failure to provide protection from gases, vapors, and caustic hazards, failure to ensure employees remove personal prescription eyewear before applying safety eyewear. Violation rank at No. 9. Machine gardening protection violation. 1,743 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations of machine gardening are failure to guard points of operation, failure to ensure secure attachment of guards to machinery, failure to properly anchor fixed machinery. OSHA requires a barrier or guard to be installed at the point of operation of any machine or piece of equipment that has a hazard that cannot be eliminated. The goal is to prevent hazards created by points of operation including pinch points, rotating points, flying chips, and sparks. No. 8. Fall protection training requirement violations. 1,773 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations are failure to provide training to personnel required to receive it, failure to certify training in writing, failure to ensure training is provided by a competent person, lack of training on proper use of guardrails and personal fall arrest systems. 4 out of the 10 listed among OSHA's most cited list involve exposure to falls, with most due to inadequate or unprovided training. Here's a refresher of OSHA's requirements for employers for fall protection training. Ensure employees have been trained by a competent person to recognize fall hazards in their work area. Employees must receive training on proper procedures for erecting, disassembling, maintaining, and inspecting fall protection systems. Prepare a written certification record of the employee trained and maintain their latest training certification. Retrain employees if there is a reason to believe an employee does not have adequate understanding, if there are changes in the workplace, or if different fall protection systems or equipment is needed that results in previous training becoming obsolete. Violation No. 7. Powered industrial trucks violation. 2,093 violations were reported in 2019. Powered industrial trucks, commonly known as forklifts, have been a game changer for increasing efficiency in the workplace. For all their benefits, forklifts also introduce numerous hazards that endanger drivers and pedestrians. Most common violations of powered trucks are failure to remove deficient or damaged forklifts from service, lack of operators' certification and training, failure to evaluate forklift drivers every 3 years as required. No. 6. Ladders violation. 2,345 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations of LDDER safety are failure of siderals extending 3 feet beyond a landing surface, ladder use for unintended purposes, using the top step of a stepladder, ladders with broken steps or rails. Tips to minimize injuries and remain safe around ladders: always inspect the ladder before use and remove it from service if it's damaged. Understand how to operate the specific ladder that is chosen. Always maintain 3 points of contact. Only break 3-point contact when reaching the ground or a stable platform. Do not use the top step or rung of a ladder unless it is designed to be used for that purpose. Do not exceed the maximum weight capacity or load rating of a ladder. No. 5. Respiratory protection violation. 2,450 violations were reported in 2019. Most common respiratory violations are failure of a respiratory program in place, failure to conduct required fit testing, failure to provide medical evaluations. 5 million workers are required to wear respirators throughout the United States. Respiratory protection safeguards workers from air contaminants that cause cancer, diseases, lung impairment, and even death. It's an employer's responsibility to identify the present hazards in work areas and determine the respiratory protection that is required. How employers can avoid the most common violations that lead to citations: pay for a medical evaluation for all employees who will be using a respirator. Employees must have a medical evaluation or they may not perform work where a respirator is required. Provide respirator training at least annually for all employees who will be using respirators. Training must also occur when workplace conditions change, a new type of respirator is introduced, or if there is any indication that an employee needs retraining. Establish and maintain a respiratory protection program. No. 4. Lockout, Tagout violation. 2,606 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations are lack of established energy control procedures and machine-specific procedures, failure to provide adequate employee training, failure to use lockout tagout equipment or devices. OSHA guidelines for LOTO should be adopted. No. 3. Scaffolding violation. 2,813 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations are lack of proper decking, failure to supply personal fall arrest systems and/or guardrails where required, failure to ensure scaffolding is supported on a solid foundation. Rules and regulations. Here's a quick refresher on OSHA's rules and regulations for scaffolding safety. 2 types of fall protection is typically required on scaffolds, guardrail systems, and personal fall arrest systems. Employers must provide guardrails or a personal fall arrest system for each employee on a scaffold that is 10 feet or more above a lower level. Both fall arrest and guardrail systems need to be used when working on a single-point and 2-point adjustable suspension scaffold and a self-contained scaffold that is supported by ropes. No. 2. Hazard communication violation. 3,671 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations are failure of a written program in place, inadequate training, failure to properly develop and maintain safety data sheets (SDSs). For the past 7 years, hazard communication has been the second most cited OSHA violation. Organizations had to be in full compliance with the HAZCOM 2012 standard. OSHA requires employers with hazardous chemicals to have compliant labels and safety data sheets for their exposed workers and to train them to handle chemicals properly. Information about the hazards and types of chemicals present in the workplace must be easily available and understandable to workers to ensure chemical safety. And the most reported violation ranked at number 1 is fall protection violations. 6,010 violations were reported in 2019. Most common violations are failure to provide fall protection near unprotected sides, edges, and on low slope and steep roofs. How can you prevent worker injury from falls? OSHA requires employers to provide guards around every floor hole where a worker can accidentally walk using a railing and tow board or a floor hole cover. Provide a guardrail and tow board around every elevated open-sided platform, runway, or floor. Regardless of height, if a worker can fall into or onto dangerous equipment or machines like a conveyor belt or vat of acid, provide guardrails and tow boards. Supply other means of fall protection equipment that may be required on certain jobs, including safety harnesses and lines, safety nets, stair railings, and handrails. Fall protection has been the #1 most cited violation in OSHA's top 10 list since 2011. It is also the leading cause of death in the construction industry. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our channel for more videos.